Hi guys, it's Amanda and welcome back to my channel. So I am here with another very impromptu video. This is kind of like my Queen and Slim video where I literally just watched this movie and I'm just gonna like talk about it. So if this video is kind of everywhere, I'm sorry, that is why. I don't know, I don't really feel like getting my thoughts together. I just want to like say them right now. So yeah, anyway. So today I'm going to be talking about Cuties, which is a French film that was recently released on Netflix. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably know it sparked a lot of controversy over the depiction of children in this movie. When Netflix originally announced the movie, it used this poster and this description, and people were pretty outraged by it. I mean, people were outraged. I think it was mostly Americans, honestly, because I think the film had already been shown in France and other parts of the world, and there wasn't a lot of controversy surrounding it. But only when Netflix US announced that it was going to be released, people really got up in arms about it. And I was honestly surprised. Okay, the description, or twerking dance crew, like that's not, I don't know, I wouldn't really say what that movie is really about. But the poster, honestly, I didn't think there was anything shocking. Like, you see those costumes those little girls are wearing, and I'm like, that's literally what all-star cheerleaders wear, like, all the time. Like, the girls on Dance Moms would wear those types of outfits. Kids on Toddlers and Tiaras would wear those things. I honestly wasn't very shocked by it. Obviously, I'm not sitting here and saying I condone the exploitation of young girls. I don't think this movie can simply be reduced to, child pornography or exploitation. I did watch some other people's reviews on it. I absolutely loved For Harriet's review. I kind of just really agreed with everything she had to say. I felt like with this movie, everyone kind of just started hating it based on that one image and that one sentence, which I don't really think is fair, especially because, this movie really had to be vetted to get made. The French government approved it. You can't just this is not just someone picking up a camera and telling 11-year-olds to start dancing like grown women. So if you don't know who the director is, she is a French Senegalese woman by the name of Maïmouna Doucouré. I tried my best to say it in French, but she is a director. This is her first feature film, and I was actually introduced to her work in a class I took. Our teacher had us watch her first short film, Mamans, which was released in 2015, and it actually has a pretty similar theme to Cuties. It's about a little girl dealing with her father taking on a second wife. I thought that film was really, really great, and that's why I was actually really quite excited for Cuties, because I think Doucouré has this really amazing and specific directorial hand, especially when it comes to telling these coming-of-age stories. So if you haven't seen Cuties, basically the plot goes like this. So there is an 11-year-old girl named Amy, and when she finds out that her father will be taking on a second wife and getting married to her, and the father and the wife will be coming to live with her and her two siblings and her mom, she's like, what the heck? No, I don't want this random lady coming to live here. So she really starts resenting her father, the new wife, who I don't think we ever actually really see, and then her mother for accepting this. So she has a lot of this pent-up rage and anger, and I feel like she just feels super oppressed in her household. So when she finds this dance crew called the Cuties, she's like, that's freedom, that's liberation, I want that, and she goes after it. So after Ami is introduced to the Cuties, she kind of starts acting like them, dressing like them, however she can, and basically the film just follows her integration into this new tween adult world, and it kind of leads up to the culmination of the Cuties performing at this dance competition. that Amy really, really, really wanted to be a part of. The film is very much a coming of age movie. It just follows Ami discovering kind of like this newfound sexuality and growing up. So on paper, it probably sounds like a pretty normal coming of age story, and it is, because it's very much rooted in reality. And honestly, I was watching it and I was like, this is super relatable. I think the part that really got taken out of context was the dancing scenes in this movie. Basically, this dance troupe, the Cuties, they realized that like the social capital in this world is like their beauty and their bodies and like maturity and the sense of sexuality. That's basically what these 11-year-old girls are striving for throughout the whole movie. And the thing is, like, 11-year-old girls striving to like imitate grown women in like these sexy type of music videos, it's extremely cringeworthy. It makes you uncomfortable to see a 12-year-old twerking, and it's just like, listen girl, like you're just fucking breaking your back over here. I think unfortunately though, those shots of these tween girls dancing really got taken out of context and over sensationalized, in my opinion. And really, I think at that age, all you can do is like imitate. Like, you haven't really formed a true full identity and sense of yourself, so you kind of just like imitate a lot of things, and you're like, hey, either I like this or I don't like this, or I'm gonna pretend to like this because it's gonna cause me to be popular and well liked. That's really what this film is. It's a lot about imitation. I think a problem with so many people saying that this film is like child pornography or it's like disgusting and exploiting children. Yes, it was a lot, but at the end of the day, that was kind of like 2 minutes of this whole, like, I believe like hour and a half film. So do I think those images should be like plastered all over the world for like everyone to see? Not necessarily, but I don't think that they should have caused this much like hate for this movie, honestly. Even though those close-up shots were very uncomfortable, I think that's just honestly what they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be actually sexy, because they can't be sexy because they're like 10-year-olds, you know? Like, they're playing these caricatures of what they think is desirable. And, you know, as an adult with the perspective of like having once been a child, you're like, no, please don't do that. Like, we don't want to see that. The director herself said she did 1.5 years of research on like tween girls to kind of really, to be able to really dig in their experience, because especially tweens who in this day and age grow up on social media, and as I said before, kind of just like imitate what they see, and they don't really know exactly what it means or the implications of it. And we see that so much in this film. I think I never felt like these children were truly being sexualized or exploited at any point, because it was just so obvious that these characters were so naive and had absolutely no idea what they were doing. And honestly, that's like what made it a pretty funny film. Like the one scene with the little girl blowing up a condom because she thought, a used condom, because she thought it was a balloon. Like, I think the whole point of this film was to really ask like the central question of like, what does it mean to be a woman, and what does it mean to grow up and come of age? Amy was faced with two choices. She could either kind of become this like domesticated, conservative mother figure of a woman, or she could kind of go on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I feel like throughout the course of this film, Amy did start to realize that her body was not just for herself, but it could be used as capital to influence other people, which is a really interesting realization. And I think it is something that this director, Doucouré, managed to capture on film that we don't really see a lot of. When you see kids on TV, they're either kids or they're kind of past the point of puberty and they're like teenagers, and then it's all about like discovering sex with other partners. I feel like we don't really see this like tween phase represented a lot because one, it's such a short period of time, like I would say 11 to like 13 years old, and two, like within such a short period of time, like there's so much changes. It's like so visceral and strong. And I think, you know, the film itself, like it mirrors that. It really does mirror that. Amy in this movie, she starts out as a very naive child, and in a very short period of time, I'm not gonna say she becomes necessarily a woman or a teenager or an adult. I think she's still a child. Like her age hasn't really changed, but she has like a new sense of understanding of the world. I think she realizes that she doesn't have to make the choice between two very polar opposites ways of being like a woman per se, that she realizes being a woman is a spectrum and that you can fit anywhere on there that makes you really feel the most comfortable, because she realized that like sticking to the very strict confines of her cultural Senegalese heritage wasn't for her. But she also realized that like twerking on stage in front of strangers wasn't for her. And at the end, we really see like her balance restored to this happy medium. When you're a kid, I think one of the main things you think about is growing up. And I think she had a very profound realization that like you can grow up, but you can also like be carefree and naive. It doesn't just have to be one or the other, if that makes any sense. I also want to say I thought the way that the role of race in this film was pretty interesting to me. The Cuties is a very diverse group of girls. So Angelica, I mean, she was like white, but you know, she had a little seasoning or whatever. And then there was also like the white girl, I think her name was Jamie. And then there was like Yasmin, which I don't know, that's a Middle Eastern name, so she could have been Middle Eastern. And then there was the other black girl. Honestly, I forgot her name, I'm so sorry. And then there was Amy, who also happens to be black. I think across cultures, we definitely have seen black girls being so hypersexualized and oversexualized at a young age compared to other peers. Honestly, in this movie, I didn't think Amy was ever oversexualized or hypersexualized because of her race. It was just because of her circumstances of being in a super conservative, restrictive household, and then having access to social media that like made her see the kind of opposite end of the spectrum and what she could be as like a promiscuous woman. I kind of liked how this movie honestly wasn't really about race, but it still managed to be like diverse, you know? I think it just shows that like anything starring a black person doesn't necessarily have to be a racial commentary. But at the same time, it was really satisfying for me personally to see a young, dark-skinned black girl as the main character on a screen for 90 minutes. Like, her race didn't really have to do anything with the story, which is quite rare these days, at least with a lot of the American films that we see. Like, so much is centered on race, I mean, and for good reason. But it was honestly like a nice little break from that. I think there's a protest going on outside. Okay, so I just went to go see that protest. Don't know what they're protesting, but rock on. So honestly, I think Doucouré is a super, super talented filmmaker and screenwriter, because when I was like watching the movie, I was just like, everything just feels right. Like, it was really, really well made and well written, and I think Doucouré does a really great job of showing and not telling, and using subtext as a tool in her films, which is interesting because there's so many examples where, you know, she gives us like half of the image, and, you know, you can put together the rest with the information she has given you. So I think it was a very conscious choice of her to do these more raunchy, promiscuous, super close-up shots. Like, you know, given that obviously she is very capable of using like subtext and what is that other word, like when you hear like someone getting stabbed in a film but you don't actually see it, but it's like enough to like make you cringe on the inside, you know, she's really good at doing that, and she uses that a lot, and it works very well. So it's quite interesting that she did include those like super close-up images, were really the spark of the controversy. Just like the proximity to the little girls was like, I think that's what really struck the controversy for it. So I think that she did those close-up shots for a reason, and it wasn't to make the public outrage, but I think it was just to show that like the visceral awkwardness of being an 11-year-old and trying to be sexy, but it's just not working. I think Maïmouna Doucouré managed to paint a very like honest portrait of tweenage dumb. I honestly felt like it was very accurate. I think the most hyperbolic part of this film was the camera's proximity, but the story itself, I think it was very true and very honest. That journey of self-discovery isn't always going to be PG-13 or PG or G-rated. I don't know, I think people forget how much children know and have access to thanks to the internet. Like, I feel like there's some statistics that are like, on average, boys start watching porn in like the 7th grade. You know, like, kids are exposed to a lot these days thanks to the internet. Not that it's necessarily a good thing, but I think it's the reality and it's the truth. I thought this film really captured that age very well, and like a lot of it was like, oh yeah, like I remember doing shit like that. It honestly kind of like gave me the same feeling that I got when I watched 8th grade, which, well, 8th grade was about a 13-year-old, so a little bit older, but like that same feeling of like cringiness because it's so bad and it's awkward and I've been there. Like, it honestly gave me the same type of vibe as 8th grade. I think a filmmaker has done their job pretty well if they are able to make an audience feel something, whether that feeling is good or bad or cringe. It tells you that, you know, they're using the language of film in a way that it is meant to be used, that it's meant to impact people. It's meant to impact a large scale of individuals from one small, specific lens and experience. And I thought, honestly, Maïmouna Doucouré did a really good job of that. Anyway, this video was super long, and if you made it to the end, you know what to do. Let me know what you think. If you disagree with me, be respectful. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!